Hello folks, here we are at Sanaki Airfield in the Caucasus. Today we are returning to Leyte Golf Target Range, which is about 15 miles to the southwest. Our mission, high altitude bombing in the F-18C using auto mode. To really appreciate auto mode, a little history is necessary. The evolution of dive bombing began on October 8, 1914 during World War I, when British Royal Naval Air Service pilot Flight Lieutenant Reginald Merricks, later Air Vice Marshal Merricks, flying a Sopwith tabloid aircraft armed with two 20-pound bombs, conducted a precision attack on a German Zeppelin hangar in Dusseldorf, Germany. He approached at an altitude of 3,000 feet, entered a steep dive, and released the bombs at around 600 feet, successfully destroying the hangar and the airship LZ-25. From that date in 1914 until the development of the A-7E Corsair II aircraft in the late 1960s, dive bombing used the Mark I eyeball, mechanical sights, and depression angles to achieve improved accuracy over level bombing. This required the attacker to enter enemy air defense envelopes in a predictable dive. With the development of the A-7E, with its computerized HUD, which collated many kinds of sensor data, the A-7E could continuously compute an impact point. This was called CCRP, and it gave the pilot the freedom to approach the target from random directions and dive angles while still achieving pinpoint accuracy. This was a major step forward in survivability. CCRP, or Continuously Computed Release Point, was also included in the A-7E's weapons system software. CCRP, also known as autobombing, provided steering to a release point for a pre-designated target. Autobombing gave the pilot the ability to drop ordnance from a much higher altitude on a target that they may or may not even see. This removed him from the point defense weapons envelopes such as AAA and shoulder-mounted SAMs, and allowed him to strike stationary targets with dumb bombs hidden by clouds and or darkness. F-18C HUD autobombing symbology. Azimuth steering line. Target designation diamond. Pull-up anticipation cue. Flight path marker. CCRP release cue. Distance to target. Time to weapons release or time to impact. Attack mode. This chart shows the Leyte Golf Range southwest of Sadaki on the Caucasus map. This is the west impact area. Strafe target. The strafe target run-in line. This is the outbound turn-in point for the strafe range. The main bull. The main bull run-in line. This is the outbound turn-in point for manual and CCRP high dive bomb. The east impact area. The secondary bull inside the impact area. Ammunition depot with its many bunkers. Okay, here we are climbing out of Sadaki, and that's the target area over there just southeast of the lake. And to point it out more closely, I'm going to go ahead and switch to waypoint 1 and then waypoint designate, and it should put a diamond. There it is. That's where the target is. And to see that on the FLIR, we're going to want to turn the FLIR on. So I've got it warmed up, should be warmed up, so I'll go ahead and go to on. And then, of course, we want to select air to ground. And then we're going to want to hit the menu button to get to the FLIR button. And then select FLIR. And it's warmed up, but it's masked by the wings, so we'll just wait for that to to unmask, but in the meantime we'll go ahead and set up the DDI1. So select the weapon, and then mode, and then auto, which is the same button, and then mechanical fusing, and then nose and tail. Okay, we'll just continue our climb to above 25. In the meantime, we want to set up quantity mult by selecting the UFC button, quantity 2, enter, and then mult 2, and then enter. And that's so that we drop in pairs. It keeps the pull-out symmetrical, which is much easier. It's also easier to pull a symmetrical airplane along the azimuth steering line as we prepare to drop. And once we roll out on a southerly heading here, it should unmask, and it looks like it's unmasked there on DDI 2, but we'll get to the heading and then roll out, and then we'll work on the details. Okay, first of all we want to make the DDI 2 the soy, which we did with the diamond up in the upper right hand corner. Then we'll zoom in on the target just to make sure that our point is designated right at the center of the bombing circle. And as we climb up, we want to go ahead and hit master arm, and then climb above 25 as I mentioned. Okay, turning towards the target here. Right there, you can see it down there on the ground. All the arrows are pointing towards it. Now we're above 27. So we should be able to pull out well above 12,000 feet, which is the goal. We want to stay out of the AAA and shoulder-mounted SAM envelopes. This tactic is obviously designed for lightly defended targets. Stationary, lightly defended targets. Hey, we're diving in from about 29,200 roughly. And as you can see, the target is actually behind the cloud, so you don't really need to see the target in this bombing method, which is really kind of nice. These are dumb bombs. You don't need to see the target. And then just smoothly pull through the release queue. Weapons are away. You can stay above the clouds. Min altitude about 15.5, so well above 12. Bombs seem to be on target. Take a look. Boom, boom, nice bracket. Boom, boom, yeah. Okay, a little bit of a climb up to the next target. Yeah, it looks like this dive is going to be from about 27, 28, maybe. Let's see, 28.3 looks like. Okay, and follow the arrows to the diamond. In this case, you can see the target. Looks like the clouds have moved out of the way. And then just fly the flight path marker to the azimuth steering line and mash down on the weapons release button while flying the azimuth steering line, pulling smoothly through it. And then once you're through it and the bomb's gone, you can pull up to the horizon and minimize your descent, which is in this case 14.5, again well above 12,000 feet. Looks like the bombs are heading in the general direction of the target. And another bracket. Okay, another brief climb back to altitude. Okay, here we are again, turning in at altitude above 25,000 feet. And imagine yourself on the ground looking up at this aircraft. You probably wouldn't, because you wouldn't be able to see it, and we're about 5 miles high or more, so you may not even hear the jet. And that's got to be an advantage, unless there's radar down there, but on a lightly defended target, on just any old day, this would be a pretty safe way to approach the target. So it looks like we're rolling in from an altitude of 27.7, doing the same thing, finding the diamond on the target, rolling to the azimuth steering line, mashing on the release button, and smoothly pulling through that release cue again. And then a nice, relatively hard pull back to the horizon, minimizing that descent. And again, a couple thousand feet above that minimum altitude. Okay, looks like it hit just about right on the target with one of the bombs. So another good hit. Okay, that means it's time for one more climb to altitude. Okay, here we are approaching the target for our final run, fourth and final. And after we drop, we're going to drop down into the strafe pattern, where I'm going to run the full pattern, but I'm only going to record the first and the last, and then we'll head on back into Sanaki. Okay, back to this task, rolling in about 28,000 feet. Doing the same old thing, very simple. Follow the arrows to the diamond, which should be on the target, verified by the DDI-2 picture. Fly the azimuth steering line, pull smoothly through the cue with the weapons button smashed, held down, pulling smartly to the horizon. Again, a couple of thousand feet, almost 3,000 feet above the minimum altitude of 12,000 feet. Weapons look maybe a little long this time, but still pretty decent hits. You're going to do some damage. And now we're going to drop down into the strafe pattern. Take notice, I selected guns here. And I'm going to define this strafe pattern. You can see it there on the ground to the left. The altitude that we want to fly to for the turn-in is going to be somewhere between 5,000 and 5,500 roughly. And speed something over 500 knots with a good solid RG turn to final, floating only in order to match up with the inbound run-in line to try to get as straight on a shot at the target as possible. And then it's just a matter of allowing the pipper to track to the target and then holding the pipper on the central dot in the middle of the target to get good hits. And brief spurts prior to the foul line will get you the best hits. 52 out of 60, not bad. Okay, I'll skip ahead to the last one, record it, and then head back in like I said. And notice it's a nice 4 to 5 G pull to downwind, climbing to somewhere between 5 and 5,000 feet. This particular one is about 4,900 feet, so a bit low, and it's noticeably darker. Remember, I flew several runs between the first and the last. I've only got 10 rounds here, so let's make them all good. A little darker, harder to see. As you get closer, it becomes visible. And 10 out of 10, dead eye. Now you know why I showed you the first and last runs. No mystery there.